Hi, I'm Trevor G. Blake from trevorgblake.com. Let me right up front establish my credibility to qualify to have your attention. So I'm a serial entrepreneur. I've built 6 companies, not 6 out of 20, so 6 out of 6. I've sold the first 3 for a combined enterprise value of 300 million. I know it doesn't make me Google or Amazon, but I don't want to be Google or Amazon. I'm really happy because I am a band of one. I've never had another employee in all of those 6 companies. And I never work more than 5 hours a day. If any of that is, I have a unique business model that is like a plug and play. And that's why I've built 6 companies based upon the same model. If any of that is of interest to you, then just go to trevorgblake.com and you can go down any of the rabbit holes that will lead you to how to achieve any of that. You'll also find a free mini course. It's called The Practical Magic of the 5-Hour Workday. It's yours. There's no strings attached to that. This is my way of paying forward, because I've learned what peak brain performance is like and how to deliberately structure a day, a work day and a life day, how to deliberately structure it so that we only have to work a few hours. We're at our peak performance when we do, but we also are able to achieve success with balance. So if you're somebody that hears yourself saying there aren't enough hours in the day to do all the things I need to do, then you need to get the practical magic of the 5-hour workday. Hopefully that's established my credibility to keep your attention for a little while in this YouTube video. If you like what I have to say on this YouTube video and you feel that there are other people out there that need to hear this, please hit the subscribe button and give it a thumbs up. You don't give it a thumbs down because you disagree with me. You only give it a thumbs down if you think this is a dumb subject to be aired on YouTube. So I would appreciate that. And I have no bones asking that because I'm a businessman. And you show me a businessman or a salesperson that doesn't ask for the business and I'll show you a failure. If you really believe in your message and that your message or your product or your service satisfies a real need that a customer has, then you have the right, you've earned the right to ask for that business. I believe I have 2 books, 3 Simple Steps and Secrets to a Successful Startup, that satisfy the need that every one of you that's watching this video has. And I have the right to ask for your business. I have the right to ask you to go buy 3 Simple Steps. And then when you've read 3 Simple Steps, go and buy Secrets to a Successful Startup. And here's why. With my companies, I don't start a company based on something I think I'm good at or something I even enjoy doing. I'm not very good at much, if the truth be told. I start a company based upon noticing or observing in the world something that I think needs fixing. It gets under my skin a little bit. I look for a solution, then find there isn't one, so I provide the solution myself. Typically, I'm totally unqualified for it. I have been for all of my 6 companies, that's for sure. And I don't have a huge network, I don't have access to capital, but I figure all that stuff out. And in doing so, I become an entrepreneur almost by default. And that's how most successful entrepreneurs are born. They don't set out to be a successful entrepreneur, they set out to fix something or to create something that doesn't exist that they feel is going to satisfy a need. Why am I mentioning that? Because that's how my books were born, 3 Simple Steps and Secrets to a Successful Startup. I have said many times, and you'll hear me saying it many times in podcasts and videos and articles, I'm not a great fan of the self-help personal development genre. The reason being that behind the message oftentimes is a hint of inauthenticity. If I'm going to use my hard-earned money to buy a book from somebody, I want to know that that person's qualified to teach me. And so I always encourage people, check out the author, check out the speaker. What's the real background? Now, I'm a fan of a lot of the famous self-help gurus, and so let's take a few of them. So take Wayne Dyer. So he started out with a very difficult childhood. That's very common among self-help and personal development people. I did too. I grew up in poverty. My family were evicted 3 times before I was even 7 years old. And then my mother was diagnosed with cancer and given 6 months to live, and my dad became unemployed and unemployable. So it was and I was also suffering from sectarian bullying. So it was a fairly tough childhood, but that's fairly common, I think, for people who find a way out of their version of quicksand and then want to pass that forward. So Wayne Dyer had a fairly difficult childhood, but then he ended up doing well. He got taken care of, and he became a very successful academic. And he started out as a school counselor and then became a professor in the university. And his lectures and his ideology was around the power of positive thinking. He'd read a lot of self-help books, and he was passing it on to his students. And then one day a literary agent said to him, "Why don't you put this down in the book?" And that was his first book, called The Erroneous Zone. It's a good book, I've read it. So you might say, okay, so what? So that's success. Well, then he gave up his academic career and he went around the United States selling his book from the back of his station wagon. And I admire that. I admire the determination. I admire the doggedness of all of that. And I really enjoy, I've read every Wayne Dyer book, and I also had his tapes and everything, because he speaks with such a beautiful gravelly voice and so powerfully that it made me feel better about the life I was living. And then one day I woke up and I thought, hang on a sec, I feel better about the life I have, but this isn't the life I want. I want a better life. And that's when I realized, behind it all is this little hint of inauthenticity, because Wayne Dyer had never achieved success before he started selling his books. And, we could look at Tony Robbins and the same story, difficult childhood, but he left home at 17 because of a difficult childhood. And he started promoting seminars for motivational speaker Jim Rohn. So he'd not achieved anything in life. I mean, 17, right? So he was sort of grandfathered into motivational speaking. And obviously he's done fantastically, and he's a great marketer, and he's built a super company around all of that. And again, the way he speaks and the things he says make you feel better about the life you have. They're uplifting, and that's a positive thing. But again, when I check the background of author Tony Robbins, surely if someone's telling me what I need to do, how to behave to be successful, surely they must have already proved that it works by being successful before they talk about it. Or am I missing the point? Even more recent ones like Rhonda Byrne of The Secret. She was a television producer, a minor television producer in Australia, and she read a book called The Secret of Getting Rich, which was written in, I think, 1910 by Wallace. And she got into then reading books about positive thinking and everything, and she got into multi-level marketing with the Hicks, Ask and It Is Given, Esther Hicks and all of that. They were all multi-level marketers, and they were doing motivational speaking cruises. And they were writing this script, and they fell out, and then there was a big fight over who had the rights to the script. And then The Secret came out, and The Secret was marketed brilliantly. And it was one of the first videos to go viral at a time when we didn't really know what viral videos were. Most of us were still on dial-up internet. I would love to read a book of Rhonda Byrne's about marketing. But I had a big question mark about the book that is based on law of attraction. It's basically a modernized version of the science of getting rich, when quantum physics it was in its early days, 1910. Okay, science was at a very basic level in 1910. And so law of attraction is not actually a law, it's a concept. It's not based on any physical laws. And so I had an issue with that, and I say, okay, so this book now is telling me how I'm supposed to live in order to be successful, but the person who's telling me was a multi-level marketing motivational speaker who hadn't achieved any measure of success before the book caught on. And same with the Hicks. So this isn't meant to be, this could come over as negative and critical, even bitter, I suppose, in a way, but I don't mean it that way. I mean that you have to be careful with your hard-earned money. When you want to take advice from somebody about how to get out of your version of quicksand, make sure that the person who's giving the advice knows what they're talking about and has done it themselves and has success and a system that they've proved more than once. Okay? I've done it 6 times with my businesses. I've done it with my life. I've lived a balanced life. I was happily married for 40 years before my wife died in December last year. My same 3 simple steps have allowed me to deal with the grief of that in a way that I think is helping other people, because I talk about it at trevorgblake.com and in my podcast. So all of that background leads me to say that's why I got into the self-help and personal development field in the first place, because I felt that there was a lack of authenticity and it needed fixing. Just like I would start a company to fix something, I wrote a book to fix something, and the first book is 3 simple steps. And I had quite a fun battle with the CEO of the publishing company, Ben Bello Books, over the title. Because there are literally tens of thousands of books called the 7 steps, the 10 steps. There's even a 42 steps to wealth. There's 42 steps to wealth and richness. And when you look at the authors behind those books, very few of them have actually achieved what the book tells you to do. They haven't achieved wealth. They consider wealth to be a couple of 100,000 in royalties from the sale of the book. That's not wealth. Today, a multimillionaire, the qualification for multimillionaire is a minimum of 30 million in cash in a bank. And here's another interesting statistic. The average age of a first-time self-made billionaire is 63. And there are only 2,755 self-made billionaires in the world, out of 7 billion people. Well, surely if all these books are so useful, there should be more than 2,755 billionaires around. A billion's not that much money anymore. And so I wrote 3 simple steps to fix that, because I had sold my first company. I started in 2003. I sold it in 2010 for 105.5 million. And it was an impactful company that provided medical solutions for rare diseases in children. Something that I was told was impossible, couldn't be done, that I managed to do on my own with my unique business model. And then I felt qualified to write a book about how I got out of my version of poverty way back when, and the steps that I used, the concepts that I used. So I was saying about the publisher, so we had an argument about, he wanted to call it the X number of steps, and I didn't want to call it steps at all because that really irritates me. And so I wanted to call it a map to success in business and life. I managed to, he allowed me to have that as a tagline. And we had this sort of negotiation, and I think 7 steps eventually got reduced to 3 steps. So my book is called 3 Simple Steps, and the 3 simple steps are the first concept is reclaiming our mentality and taking control of that, which means getting back to the individual we were meant to be, finding our power and our purpose, and taking control of our thoughts and our words, because this isn't positive thinking. There's no such thing as positive thinking. It's nonsense, because our thoughts occur in 500 milliseconds. You don't have time to stop. And you don't want to, because sometimes you need a negative thought in order to survive. If a car's hurtling towards you or a grizzly bear is attacking you, you need to get away. You need a negative thought. But what you do have control over is how you react to those negative thoughts. And so mentality control is about thinking about what you've just thought. Is that harmful to me? Because thoughts are energy too, and they convert into our material equivalent of experience and emotions. So then you react differently. And when that becomes a habit, you start to take a degree of control over your life. And you never have to become a saint, but even small positive changes make a huge difference in outcomes. So that was part 1 of that was step 1, right? My part 1, the publisher's step 1. And then my part 2 was about this changing time that we're in, where we're in a time of innovation and technological change that's so rapid. There's never been a time in history like this, and it provides so much opportunity, but most people aren't looking. And so most people are doing things the old way, see an opportunity or see an issue, call a meeting, build a team. We don't have time for that anymore. See an opportunity, see an issue, make an intuitive decision. And so it's about deepening your intuition. That's part 2, or step 2, as a publisher calls it. And then part 3 is about taking all of that new power and directing it at something, because all of the books that have analyzed what it takes to succeed compared to what it takes to not succeed come down to 2 things. One is self-confidence, and the other is a tendency to set big targets. Now, most people would expect it to be connections or capital or intelligence. Those don't count. Self-confidence and a tendency to set big targets. And so part 3, or step 3, as the publisher called it, is about finding that target and how to keep a focus, how to get to a sense of knowing of achieving that target. And that's what I do with my companies. With all of my 6 companies, I do all of that even before I start the company. I already know what the outcome of the company is going to be and how much I'm willing to sell it for before I even think about raising money or starting. And these are my 3 simple steps. This is my philosophy of life. Where did I learn it? I didn't learn it from self-help books. I learned it from biographies. When I was 14 or 15, I was suffering from sectarian bullying. I hid in the town library because the idiots would never go in the town library. And I just started reading, and I started reading biographies. of amazing people in all kinds of life adventures, whether in business or music or writing or even pioneers, adventurers. And I realized that they all had their version of quicksand. They got out of quicksand, they worked on their attitude and their protection, and then they hit a big target. And I saw the same patterns of behavior amongst them all. And so I just started to do that in my life. And then I went from a very poor student to top student in the school. I went from poverty to becoming an officer in the Royal Navy. In that days, in the late 70s, early 80s, that was a quantum leap. And then I had a fantastic career traveling around the world because I was only interested in travel then. So traveled around the world earning $330,000 a year as a salary. It's a nice way to travel while working. And then only when I got to around 40 years old did I start to think about my relationship with money. And I didn't have a good relationship. I still had this kind of mentality of lack, and I still had this sort of thing in my head about money could be grubby, and I had it all wrong. And my academic side is I'm a physicist. I have a degree in radiation physics and nuclear medicine, and that doesn't help me in any way, but it sort of whetted my appetite for getting into quantum physics. And so in quantum physics, I started to realize that everything's energy, and therefore also money is energy. So we convert labor into a thing called money, and then we can convert money into a thing called other things, like building a business or letting it flow in some other way. And so I changed my relationship with money, which is something I talk about in both my books. And that's so healthy. And so rather than pursuing money and thinking it's something to hold on to, I realize now that financial independence is about flow of money energy through life. When I did that, that's when I started my first company. And if you want to know more about the companies and how I started my companies, then you would put down 3 simple steps when you finish reading it, and you would pick up Secrets to a Successful Startup. Because it is a step by step, and I managed to avoid saying steps. There are about 12 steps in there. And it truly is step by step, like a stepping stones across a pond, about how you go from creating a winning idea to then envisaging its success, to then building it in real terms, to the business plan, to the execution, if you like, how to manage cash flow. All of that, you really don't need anything else. And I wrote that for the same reason, because when I used to walk around somewhere like Barnes and Noble, looking in the business sections and the psychology sections, there were hundreds of books written by management consultants about how to be a better manager. But I couldn't find a single book about how to do a startup properly. And I'd done it 6 times. So I must have something that works. I must have a program. I must have a business model whose time has come. Otherwise it wouldn't have worked. Or I would have failed 6 times as well. So I'm 6 for 6 with my businesses, and it's because of this program that I use, this business model and the program around it. And so I wrote the book again to fix something that needed fixing, because there were no books in the library or in the bookshop like that. And so it's everything you need to know to start the right way in a startup. So I'm a businessman, and I used to be a salesman, and then I was a sales manager. And I always say to people, show me a salesperson or a business person who doesn't ask for the business, and I'll show you a failure. And they're a failure for 2 reasons. One is they didn't ask, and 2 is they didn't ask because they didn't believe in what they have to sell. So hopefully through this YouTube video, you can tell that I believe wholeheartedly in 3 Simple Steps and Secrets to a Successful Startup. They're the best 2 books out there because they're authentic. They're actually different because they're authentic. And I don't believe you need anything else. I believe those 2 books are enough for you to get out of your version of quicksand and achieve anything you want in any version of lifestyle. So it doesn't matter whether it's music or art or dance or theatre or whether it's business or non-profit. These 2 books will do it for you. And I want your business. And I'm confident enough to ask for your business because I believe wholeheartedly that I have solutions to the needs that you have. And so do yourself a favor, please. First of all, hit the subscribe button. Give this a thumbs up, because if this is a topic that needs to be out there, that's the way it goes up the algorithm, and that's the way more people find it. Don't give it a thumbs down if you just don't agree with me, because that's just childlike. Give it a thumbs down if you think this is a dumb topic that is a waste of airtime. Okay? And then if you haven't purchased 3 Simple Steps, which is a natural New York Times bestseller, most of the big publishers, they purchase that title, New York Times bestseller. You can do it for somewhere between $50,000 and $100,000. Most people don't know that. Most people blindly buy a book because, it's New York Times bestseller, it must be good. Oh, it's featured on Oprah Winfrey, it must be good. They don't realize the money that's exchanging hands to make that happen. I didn't do that. Okay, so we have 3 Simple Steps that's been a New York Times bestseller 3 times, and we have Secrets to a Successful Startup, both of which are authentically written and put out into the world to find their readers, not to be pushed down readers' throats. So do yourself a favor and buy 3 Simple Steps, read that one first, then put that one down, and I guarantee by the end of 3 Simple Steps you'll be really interested in starting your own venture. You don't have to do what Wayne Dyer did. You don't have to give up your academic career or your other career to start a company. It's not either or. And you don't have to have just one brilliant idea. You can have dozens of brilliant ideas, and you can have dozens of companies running at the same time. Like I have 3 at the same time right now. I'm running obviously TrevorGBlake.com, Fluffs Incorporated, and Audrey and Linda, which is a production company, at the same time. And I only work a couple of hours a day. So if any of this is of interest to you, then do yourself a favor, buy 3 Simple Steps, hit the subscribe button, give it a thumbs up, and that way you're also paying forward at the same time. And then, for an extra $10, go get Secrets to a Successful Startup and learn how you can go from 0 to $100 million so quickly that it makes your head spin.